Emma, a kind-hearted waitress, will experience a day that will change her entire life. When the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, comes to one of the most popular cafes in America, Emma's life will change, and Elon Musk will shock her. After that day, the owner of the cafe where the events took place will lose his cafe worth billions of dollars. Emma was fired from her job because of Elon Musk, but Elon Musk, who did not forget what happened, would try to find Emma and call her to tell her everything. Emma and Elon Musk had a day they will never forget. Now let's take a look at what happened from the beginning. Elon Musk had started his day once again in his usual routine. He got out of bed as the sunlight woke him up, pausing for a moment as he looked out the window. The city had awakened to a new day, but for now, he hadn't decided what he would do. He had been rushing around in the business world for a long time, and today he wanted to do something different. He wanted to take a break, perhaps get lost in the city. He had been preoccupied with thoughts from last night until morning. Today, he would spend his day in a peaceful place where he could clear his mind. He immediately grabbed his phone and began searching for nearby places online. He read a few cafe suggestions, but his attention was suddenly caught by one cafe, a luxurious, modern cafe located a bit outside the city center in a quiet neighborhood. At that moment, his plan for the day became clear. He would go to this cafe and spend the morning there. Having been unable to get his mind off work for a long time, Elon was looking for a place where he could relax and enjoy the rest of the day. This cafe offered just the atmosphere he needed. He tore his gaze away from the phone screen, quickly prepared, and headed for his car. After a few minutes on the road, he had no trouble finding the cafe's address. He entered a small neighborhood, a quiet and peaceful environment. The charming cafe emanated a warm and inviting aura from the outside. Elon parked his car and walked through the door. He was eager to order something, but the environment was not as quiet as he had expected. Typically, in places he visited, he was noticed by fans, but here no one recognized him. The focus was not on him. There were only a few waiters and customers. This time, instead of admiring gazes, he received much warmer attention. As soon as he walked in the door, a woman quickly walked toward him. The woman was Emma, who had recently started her job there. Elon quickly realized that Emma was a big fan of his. With a small smile on his face, he watched her approach. Emma excitedly walked toward him and said, "It's so nice to see you here today, Elon Musk." Elon thanked her with a calm but meaningful smile. People often assume that celebrities are only about their appearance, but to Elon, being welcomed properly and receiving genuine attention mattered much more. While many people would approach celebrities with excitement at first sight, being welcomed by someone like Emma was always more valuable. Emma kindly guided Elon to the best table. As they approached his table, their first conversation began. Emma politely asked what he would like to drink. Elon stated that he would like an espresso. She immediately took his order and went to the kitchen. Elon noticed Emma's excitement. Everything was new and different for her, but her genuine demeanor caught Elon's attention. At that moment, Elon took his tablet out of his pocket and started checking his work. But the few minutes spent in the cafe carried a different significance for him. Here, he had escaped the noise of the big city. While waiting for Emma to return with his order, he became engrossed in his work. He answered a few emails, but during this time in the cafe, he felt a sense of peace and relaxation. It felt as though he were far away from the city. Emma would return with his order, but Elon was also trying to internalize the peace and comfort of being in the cafe. As his eyes drifted back to his tablet screen, he could feel the atmosphere of the cafe slowly seeping into him, with the waiters passing by. Spending a peaceful morning had always been far more valuable than the noise of the business world. When Emma returned, Elon received his order, but was also greatly enjoying the simple, sincere atmosphere of the place. Emma, with excitement in her eyes, showed how happy she was to see him, perhaps even feeling a sense of pride from working in the cafe. Elon had managed to relax a little in that peaceful moment, but he wanted to spend more time in the warm atmosphere of the cafe. Thus, he spent that brief but special moment, away from the chaos of life. Emma's warm welcome made that moment even more meaningful. That day, the cafe was filled with many regular customers. These people usually spent their mornings there, sipping their coffee while chatting with one another. But that day was different. Everyone in the cafe had their eyes fixed on Elon Musk. Seeing the famous billionaire was not an ordinary occurrence for them. Unfortunately, instead of viewing this moment positively, some decided to take it as an opportunity for criticism. Seeing one of the city's most popular figures was, unfortunately, not always met with appreciation. People often judged celebrities from an outsider's perspective, forming opinions without truly understanding them. At first, these people merely stole glances at Elon, trying to hide their reactions with smirks, but their arrogance was evident. In their conversations, they found ways to belittle the presence of such a famous person, using the moment to criticize him. A few people sitting around Elon's table began openly questioning his work and accomplishments in loud voices. Elon was well aware of his own success, so he knew that such criticisms wouldn't really affect his state of mind. Yet, seeing such behavior still brought a slight sting. He understood that jealousy and resentment were common reactions, but he always tried to remain calm. With a faint smile, he continued to shield himself from the negativity, shifting his gaze back to his tablet. At that moment, he seemed unbothered by what others thought. Still, being exposed to so much noise and negative energy for a prolonged period could become truly irritating. It was a situation that required patience, but suddenly things escalated. The murmurs in the cafe grew louder. People could no longer hide their discomfort with Elon's presence. They took it further by openly mocking his work and achievements, throwing direct insults at his intelligence and vision. Their words had become harsher and more blatant. When Emma noticed what was happening to Elon, she knew she could no longer remain silent. She had to do something to defend him. To her, insulting and belittling Elon was a great injustice. She deeply respected his work. Emma's face tensed, her eyes filled with anger. She slowly got up from her seat and walked toward the group. Raising her voice, she shouted, "What do you think you're doing? Is it really this easy to insult another person?" She was visibly angry, but she was also determined to stand up for him. The other customers were caught off guard by Emma's outburst, but she remained firm. It's not that simple. Belittling someone like Elon Musk is nothing more than jealousy. No one who has worked so hard to achieve success should have to hear such things from others, she declared, standing her ground. For a moment, there was silence, until a woman suddenly walked toward Emma. As she got closer, she aggressively shoved Emma, trying to push back against what she had said. That shove was almost the start of a full-blown fight. Emma had no choice but to defend herself by pushing the woman back, but in doing so, the woman lost her balance and fell to the ground. Suddenly, the situation took a strange turn. The woman got up as if nothing had happened and, dramatically bursting into tears, started hurling insults at Emma as though she were the victim. As the other customers watched the unfolding scene, the growing tension between Emma and the woman cast an uneasy silence over the cafe. Then, one by one, everyone except Elon left the cafe. The atmosphere had become so tense and unsettling that no one wanted to stay any longer. Elon quietly observed as everything unfolded, realizing that this incident had left an undeniable mark on the cafe. Emma was both angry and upset, but deep down, she still believed she had done the right thing. After sitting in silence for a few more minutes, Elon left the cafe. Emma, left alone, tried to tidy up the place after everything that had happened. That day, the sudden turn of events had left a lasting impression on everyone's lives. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open, and silence filled the room. The atmosphere inside changed in an instant. The person who had just entered was the cafe's owner, an elderly man. Unaware of the day's events, he scanned the room, trying to understand what had happened. Not a single customer remained. Only Elon, Emma, and a few waiters were still there. Everyone exchanged glances, and the tension in the air was palpable. The owner's gaze swept over the room, falling heavily upon everyone inside. Unable to ignore the chaos, the owner demanded, "Emma, what happened here?" His eyes, filled with both anger and confusion, reflected his shock at the disarray. Emma, her eyes still brimming with tears, began to explain. Though her voice was steady, her emotions were evident. The customers started insulting Elon. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing, so I stood up for him. Because of that, everyone left, she said. The sadness and regret in her voice deepened with each word. The owner could not accept this situation. Losing regular customers jeopardized the cafe's sustainability. If too much negativity surrounded the business, it would suffer financially. The cafe was already going through a difficult time, and scandals like this would only make things worse. Fixing his gaze on Emma, the owner shouted, "What have you done? We lost all our regular customers. The future of this cafe is now at risk." His eyes carried an unspoken accusation with every word. Emma understood the consequences of her actions, but she still believed she had done the right thing. She couldn't comprehend why her boss was reacting with such anger. The tension in the cafe was overwhelming. "Boss, I just did what I thought was right. I defended Elon. I couldn't just sit there and watch them insult him. Their arrogance and cruel behavior weren't right," Emma said. But this time, her voice was filled with defiance, amplified by her frustration. The owner's face darkened even further. The anger in his eyes grew. To him, there was only one thing that mattered: customer satisfaction. Holding his head in his hands, he exclaimed, "I can't accept this. If the customers leave, this business will slowly collapse," he shouted. Then, turning sharply toward Emma, he ordered, "Leave this cafe immediately and never come back." His words shattered Emma. She was already angry and upset, but she hadn't expected such a reaction. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held them back as she quickly turned toward the exit. The tears streaming down her face reflected the turmoil within her. She was so overwhelmed that even if she wanted to say something, no words came out. Without hesitation, she left the cafe. The cafe owner watched Emma walk away for a moment. Despite his firm decision, a wave of guilt crept in. Had he really made the right choice? Emma's departure was shocking to Elon. After a moment of silence, he calmly stood up and looked directly at the owner. "Do you even realize what you've just done?" he asked sharply. Elon was angered by the owner's decision. He had remained silent during the entire ordeal, but he could not ignore this injustice. Giving the owner one last disappointed look, Elon turned his gaze toward the cafe's interior before quietly walking out. His expression alone conveyed how deeply let down he felt. The cafe now felt empty. The owner struggled to accept how everything had fallen apart. At that moment, he stood on the edge between preserving the cafe's future and watching its reputation crumble. With evening approaching, he had no choice but to dwell on what had happened. The challenge of winning back customers and restoring order weighed heavily on his mind. It seemed that from this moment on, nothing in the cafe would ever be the same. Elon thought about the courage Emma had shown to defend herself after what had happened at the cafe. The determination in her eyes, her stance against injustice, and the fact that she lost her job just for standing up for what was right had deeply affected him. He had always seen himself as strong and independent, but witnessing someone else risk everything for him that day stirred a different feeling inside him. A strange sense of guilt lingered. Maybe Emma had supported him not because he was just a regular customer, but simply because he was a human being. Elon wanted to thank her somehow, but he didn't know how. Hours had passed, and Elon was still thinking about how he could find Emma. He did some research online, asked a few acquaintances, but found nothing. In the end, he decided the most logical thing to do was to go back to the cafe. Maybe the employees knew something about her. He got into his car and drove quickly toward the cafe. When he arrived, the place was quieter than before. The usual regulars were nowhere to be seen. Inside, there were only a few waiters, and the owner was nowhere in sight. Elon walked in and directly approached one of the waiters at the counter. "I'm looking for the woman who was just fired. Her name was Emma, right? Do you know where she lives?" he asked. The waiters looked at each other in surprise. Then one of them hesitantly replied, "Yes, we know Emma. She worked here for a long time. We know where she lives, but why are you asking?" Elon smiled slightly. "I want to thank her," he said. The waiters gave him the address and mentioned that Emma lived alone. Without wasting any time, Elon got back into his car and drove to the given address. When he arrived at Emma's neighborhood, he noticed that the area looked a bit older and more modest. Taking a deep breath, he stopped in front of her house and knocked on the door. He waited for a few seconds, but there was no response from inside. He knocked again, then once more. But still, no answer. A sense of worry crept in. He had no idea if Emma was okay. Just then, the door of the neighboring house opened. An elderly woman stepped out and smiled warmly at him. "I recognize you," she said cheerfully. Elon smiled faintly. The woman's warm demeanor put him at ease. "Hello, I'm looking for Emma. Is she home?" he asked. The elderly woman shook her head gently. "No, she just left," she said. "She's probably gone to visit her parents' graves. She goes there often." Elon paused. This information surprised him. He knew nothing about Emma's family. The woman explained that the cemetery was a bit outside of town and gave him directions. Elon quickly set off for the cemetery. As he drove, his curiosity grew. What had happened to Emma's family? Why did she visit them so often? The cemetery was quiet and peaceful. As he entered, he walked among the tall gravestones, his eyes searching for Emma. After a few minutes of wandering, he finally spotted her. Emma was kneeling in front of two graves, her head bowed. As Elon silently approached, he noticed Emma wiping away her tears. She was speaking to herself. "Dad, that man is still running your cafe. I'm so sorry. After you both passed away, they took the cafe from me. I couldn't do anything. I tried so hard, but I wasn't strong enough. They wouldn't even let me near it. I managed to get a job there as a waitress, but today I lost that too. I've lost everything. I don't know what to do." Elon was shocked by what he heard. He had just discovered that Emma's family once owned the cafe and that the owner had deceived her to take control of it. In that moment, he made a decision. He quickly turned around and left the cemetery. As soon as he got into his car, he drove straight to his company. There was a fire of anger and determination inside him. The moment he entered his office, he gathered his best lawyers. He sat them around the table and told them everything. "We're not letting this go," he said firmly. "That cafe rightfully belongs to Emma, and we're going to get it back for her." The lawyers immediately began their research. They started gathering documents to investigate how the cafe had changed ownership and whether it had been done legally. Meanwhile, Elon tried to contain his anger, impatient to take action as soon as possible. Now, he had only one goal: to return Emma's family legacy to her. Elon Musk had been tirelessly researching Emma's past and the history of the cafe for a long time. No matter how exhausted he was, giving up was never an option. He gathered a large team and deepened the investigation, eventually uncovering a crucial document. This document proved that the cafe rightfully belonged to Emma's father. However, the documents were hidden inside the cafe, and retrieving them would not be easy. Just when hope was fading, one of his team members shouted excitedly, "I found it!" Without wasting a second, Elon jumped into a car with a few team members and rushed toward the cafe. It was 3 a.m. When they arrived at the entrance, they were stopped by a security guard. The guard firmly stated that they could not enter. However, when Elon explained that Emma was the rightful owner and that the cafe had been stolen from her, the guard hesitated for a moment. Hearing Emma's name affected him. She was well liked among the employees. Then, as he shined his flashlight on Elon's face, he froze in shock. One of the world's most famous entrepreneurs was standing before him. After asking a few questions, he finally allowed them inside. Once inside, everyone quickly began searching for the document. It didn't take long before they found the ownership papers belonging to Emma's father. Elon clutched the document tightly, thanked the security guard, and swiftly left with his team. At the break of dawn, they arrived at the courthouse. The judge carefully examined the documents, and the truth soon became clear. The current cafe owner, Robert, had indeed stolen Emma's rightful inheritance. The ruling was firm. The cafe would be returned to Emma. To celebrate this victory, Elon and his team decorated the cafe, preparing a surprise for Emma. One of her friends called and told her to come immediately. Confused, she hesitated until Elon took the phone and said, "My mother always told me that when you do good, it comes back to you. Yesterday, you did something incredible for me. Now it's your turn to receive. Come and reclaim what's yours." Without a second thought, Emma rushed to the cafe. The moment she stepped inside, confetti filled the air, and everyone cheered for her. Elon approached her with a warm smile and said, "This place is yours again." Overwhelmed with emotion, Emma burst into tears and hugged Elon. That day, not only was the cafe restored to its rightful owner, but it also proved how a single act of kindness could change lives. From that day forward, Emma continued on her path, believing more than ever in the power of justice and goodness. 6 years had passed since Emma had reclaimed her cafe. The cafe had grown, filled with new customers and employees. Emma felt great joy in keeping her father's legacy alive. One morning, a luxurious car stopped in front of the cafe. The person stepping out was none other than Elon Musk. Emma's face lit up as she saw him. They exchanged warm smiles, and Elon took a seat, placing an order. Wanting to bring it herself, Emma quickly headed to the kitchen. The cafe was as lively as ever, but some customers became uneasy upon seeing Elon. The new waitress, Sophia, overheard their comments but remained silent. fearing for her job. However, when one customer directly insulted Elon, she couldn't hold back any longer and spoke up in his defense. Her bold response led to some regular customers leaving the cafe. Overwhelmed, Sophia burst into tears, convinced she would be fired. At that moment, laughter echoed through the cafe. Elon was laughing. His relaxed demeanor surprised everyone. Emma, hearing the laughter, stepped in with a smile and asked what had happened. With a playful tone, Elon turned to Sophia and jokingly asked, "Did you also used to own a cafe?" His humor lightened the mood. Emma took Sophia's hand, guiding her to the table, and they began reminiscing about the past. That day was filled with laughter and heartfelt conversations. Sophia realized that the cafe was more than just a workplace. It felt like a family. Emma, too, understood that the cafe wasn't just a business, but a place where people could find peace and belonging. And that, dear friends, is where our story comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed this heartfelt tale. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Also, for more heartwarming stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, and see you soon. E.